Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jed Lee, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We have a wonderful show for you today. We're so excited that you are part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Stitcher Radio, on Spotify, or wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is a debut author celebrating her brand new book, Being Small Isn't So Bad After All. Our guest's name is Lori Orlinsky. Before Lori joins us, I want to let you know that this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by The Adventures of Johnny Pocket Band, Battle of the Band by Linda Phelps. Do you know a tween or a teen who struggles with stress and anxiety? Well, if you answered yes, let me suggest a perfect fun summer read, The Adventures of Johnny Pocket Band by Linda Phelps. Johnny and his brother Drummer Boy are excited to compete in the Battle of the Bands. They have 2 months to get prepared, but everyone is way nervous. Johnny has promised himself that he will conquer his anxiety this year and start having fun. And you know, with the help of his friends, he just might make it. This story captures the emotions, fears, and excitement of the preteen years. It's a difficult time for all, but this story opens a window of understanding as each kid shares their thoughts about fitting in, making friends, and the new unsettling attraction to girls. This is a fantastic read for all families. The Adventures of Johnny Pocket Band, Battle of the Bands is available on Amazon or on Linda's website, johnnypocket.net. The Adventures of Johnny Pocket Band, Battle of the Bands by Linda Phelps. This episode of the podcast is also sponsored by Mommy's Big Red Monster Truck by Allison Paul Klakowitz. Every kid knows that mommies are the greatest. They feed us, they take care of us, they love us with all their hearts. But did you also know they're like so cool? Now, one little boy sure does. His mommy drives a great big red monster truck, and it is awesome. It bounces and smashes and takes them on amazing adventures all over the country. And her truck, they can do anything and go anywhere. And best of all, they do it together. Mommy's Big Red Monster Truck by Allison Paul Klakowitz. It really is a fun book that you and your kids are going to love. You're just going to go on a magnificent journey with this book. Check it out today. It's available on Amazon. Mommy's Big Red Monster Truck by Allison Paul Klakowitz. Join us on the line right now from Chicago in Illinois. She is the author of a debut picture book. It's called Being Small Isn't So Bad After All. A book that I just love, being vertically challenged myself. Please welcome to the show, Lori Orlinsky. Lori, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's such an honor.
I'm excited to have you on the show and excited for you to tell us all about what Being Small Isn't So Bad After All is all about.
Great. Well, it is the origins of being small. I have a 6-year-old daughter. One of my kids is 6 right now. Her name is Haley. And when she was 30 years old, she came home from preschool crying hysterically and said she was done going to school and she never wanted to go anymore. So it took a lot of bribery and prying, and I finally found out that the teachers had done a very innocent exercise. They hung a growth chart on the wall, and they put a piece of masking tape next to each child's height indicator. And all of her friends were on the top and the middle, and she was like way down at the bottom as the shortest. And what she saw wasn't, I'm just the shortest. She saw her name at the bottom, which to her meant that she was the worst. And, we discussed it at length, and then I figured, let me just go on Amazon and find a book about it, find a character that she can relate to, and then read it to her and call it a day. And I was completely shocked that there was no book about this topic that existed. And that's how Being Small was born.
I love that story of how this book came to be. I don't love the fact that Haley felt bad and that she had this bad experience where she felt terrible and her feelings were hurt and she became so sad. But I love the way that you dealt with it as a parent. First, you listened to your child and you took your child's words and you took your child's feelings and emotions seriously. And that's so very, very important. And then you looked for a book to read with your kids. And that's a great way to deal with these emotional issues through the pages of a book by talking about a character in a book that's dealing with some of the same things. And then when you couldn't find that resource, you went and you wrote it yourself. You created that book yourself. And one of the things I want to know is, where did you get the idea, the strength to believe that you could actually write a children's picture book?
Absolutely. I have a journalism and freelance background, and I've always wanted to write a book, but I've never had this inspiration. And, this experience and having this negative day at Haley's school became such a defining moment in my life, because it hit me over the head, oh my God, this is what I'm supposed to do. And it really just started out as, let me kind of write a poem for my daughter, and, I can read it to her at night and make her feel better. And then it kind of turned into a book, and then my family encouraged me, you should kind of think about getting this published. And I did, and it's surprising that it all worked out, but it's, not only made a difference in the life of Haley, but I'm seeing this book really change other kids' perspectives, both kids that are short and even kids that are taller, because it gives them some kind of perspective on the power of their words. So it is getting a lot of praise for kind of becoming this anti-bullying book.
Tell us a little bit about the message in the book and what you what you convey to kids in Being Small Isn't So Bad After All.
So the original message that I wanted to portray was that short kids can do special things too, just like tall kids. So, short kids, for example, you're the last one to get wet when it rains. My mom used to tell me that all the time because I'm only 5'1", but, it never impacted me the way that it impacted Haley. And so, again, initially it was to make short kids feel better. And in writing this book, there's just so many universal undertones about celebrating our unique differences and kind of empowering a child. And there's also a great message in there about the bond between a mother and a child, and how, a parent really has this wonderful role to, make a child feel better and to kind of shape the way that they see the world.
I love that. I love that. Now, as you were creating this poem, what was Haley's reaction the first time you read it to her, and then when she finally saw it in print?
She's very honest. And so a lot of times I would, start reading a stanza, and she would put her thumbs down, or she would stick her tongue out, and she was like, that's a big word. And so she really helped me. She was my best editor in a sense, because I realized that I couldn't use certain words. I had to really, get it to that, preschool to grade school age level. And, she's got it memorized. Her and my other daughter memorized it. But they, gave me some really good tips. I probably had about 80% of the book developed, and then she helped me with that other 20% by kind of telling me the problems that she faces as a kid. And she was able to articulate that, even at 3.5, 4 years old.
Yeah, that was one of the things that struck me when you were telling the story, is just how aware kids are at such a young age, that it's they're kids are just seeing these differences.
It's unbelievable. I started doing some research as I was writing the book, and I found out that 160,000 children stay home from school every single day just to avoid being bullied. And, what's more, this bullying behavior can start as early as age 3, with girls being a little bit more susceptible to it. And, I didn't think Haley was being bullied, but I thought this was such a critical time in her social and emotional development that she could either, kind of embrace it and really embrace being small, or she could just freeze and retreat. And I wanted her to embrace it.
And I really think that is a brilliant strategy, for a lack of a better word, in dealing with Haley, and a great tool to give her as she's growing up. I've been doing educational magic shows that deal with the topic of bullying since 2003. And, that's one of those statistics that really, kind of caught my eye. And one of the things, too, I think you're experiencing it, too, with this book is that a lot of times what some kids are perceiving as bullying behavior that's not the intention of the kids on the other end. They're not necessarily looking to bully someone to make them feel bad. They just don't realize the power of their words and how, that some words, may not bother, 90% of the kids in the class, but they may be very, very hurting to 10 or 5% of the class.
Absolutely. And I think, too, kids are so visual that when you're kind of trained to associate the top with being the best. And so when your name falls at the bottom and you go into school and it's a visual that you see every single day, I think you kind of associate that with being the worst. So I really started to understand and empathize where Haley was coming from. And, her friends would call, and even our teachers very innocently would call her Munchkin and Peanut, and they would kind of like rest their hand on her head, kind of like they were petting her. It was really endearing, but she took it to, I am short, I am like a small puppy, I'm the worst, I have these horrible nicknames. And so, she was really sensitive to it.
Mm-hmm. And one of the interesting things, too, is I joked earlier about being short of stature myself, but I am. And it took me a while to kind of embrace it, But even though I have come to terms with it, and I'm a lot older than 3 years old, there are days when it's kind of annoying, especially when it's pointed out to me.
One interesting thing about this book is, I will talk to parents who will say their kids are tall, and they'll tell me about the struggles that their kids have. For example, with tall kids, there's the expectation that the kids have to be smarter at a younger age because they look older. Mm-hmm. And it's just so interesting. It kind of like unearths all these stigmas and all the ways that people are feeling. It's not just short kids that sometimes get, for pun intended, the short end of the stick. I mean, mm-hmm. there are so many children that have, differences, whether they're, inner, emotional or they're physical. And every one of those children is special in their own way and should be kind of celebrated and should have that self-confidence. And if we can give them that foundation at an early age, I think that we really can get ahead of the bullying.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, absolutely. And you do point out, every kid does have their abilities and their challenges. You were mentioning how tall kids, they appear older, so they have to, there's pressure on them to appear smarter. There's also pressure on them to be more athletic. People think that you're tall, you must be a great athlete or whatever. And I think that's so important for us to teach our kids and also to remind ourselves as adults that we need to look at children and come to understand who they are and what their abilities and challenges are, and not to make prejudgments about what they should be.
Absolutely. I agree 100% with that. And, every time Haley would get measured at the doctor, I mean, I am not a fan of that, like your child is in this percentage height, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. As long as your kid is healthy and happy, for me, that was the ultimate. And so I never even thought about, telling Haley, you're in the 4th percent for height, or you're in the 0% for height. It just, I didn't intentionally not tell her, but then, even more so when this issue came about, I made sure to say to, our pediatrician, this is a conversation that maybe you should have when the children aren't around, because here's how my daughter reacted.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What was your pediatrician's response when you shared that?
He understood, at that age, most kids don't take things so much to heart. Mm-hmm. My daughter was really, really sensitive. And I think, as I mentioned, it had to do with that visual reminder every day. Whereas, you go to the doctor once every couple months when you're younger and you get labeled as you're in this percentage. But, he definitely appreciated the feedback and understood where I was coming from.
Mm-hmm. What specific message did you share with Haley that kind of helped her understand that being short, it's not so bad after all?
I showed her, I think, I would tell her these positive things that she could do. When we go on a plane, we're going to Disney World, look at all the room that you have. And everyone else is like, Daddy is tall, Daddy is so squished in. You and I have so much room for our feet. And I think telling her things like that is different than actually seeing it in the book. She got to see the illustrations of, a tall kid not fitting in a little treehouse, yet a short kid kind of fitting there with ease. Mm-hmm. And we also talked about, the benefits that all kids have, whether it's any kind of differences that they had. We talked about the fact that everyone has positives and negatives, but it's really about who you are on the inside and how you treat other people. And I think, that message really resonated with her. And now, she is the shortest one probably in all of kindergarten in her school by a landslide. And she rocks it. She totally embraces it. And I think it's because of the book.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, absolutely. I know there's so many wonderful kids in my life that I've met over the years who are the shortest in their class, but they have this fire and courage inside them that's really incredible. And that's kind of what I'm hearing about Haley.
Yeah, that's exactly. She has this newfound confidence, I can take over the world because I now see the things that I can do that, other people might have looked at as a hindrance, but really it makes her excel.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were saying earlier on about kids who are taller, kind of coming to understand about their words and not using words that are hurtful to others. Talk a little bit more about that and those kids' reactions.
Yeah, I've had a lot of reactions from parents and kids, saying kind of what I mentioned to you about, oh, my, son always calls Haley Munchkin. We didn't think it was that big of a deal. And so it gives them more of the understanding that, hey, what you may think is such a nice, endearing pet name, it could, your words, have power over others, and let's not do that. And let's make sure we address, her by her name or ask her if it's okay if you call her that. And, I think that kids are understanding, on the playground, shorter kids may have, different abilities than they do. And I think it's just, I go to readings all the time. I read to preschools and elementary schools, and so many times taller kids will raise their hands and they'll say, I didn't realize that this hurts my friend's feelings. Next time I'm going to do this instead. And I think, again, that wasn't the original message. I wanted this to be just for short kids. And it just has these universal undertones that I think apply to so many kids in so many situations.
Now that you're getting such great response to the reading and folks who are reading Being Small Isn't So Bad After All, and the reactions are so positive, do you have plans to write a follow-up or to turn this into a series?
I'm thinking about it. I do have another book in the works that'll be released in the fall, but it's a completely different topic. Mm-hmm. It's more, it's less about a lesson and a more fun kind of Tooth Fairy-esque book. But the more people that read Being Small and the more people that I tell them about it, they're like, can you do being tall? Can you do being shy? Can you do having red hair? And so I think there is this opportunity to kind of turn this into a series that, gives all different kids of all different, looks and abilities, self-confidence.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, right off the top of my head, I think you could write a Being Tall Isn't So Bad After All, because I know a lot of kids who are really, really tall who feel very self-conscious about it.
Yeah, that's great. I would love to talk to you when I start to do it.
Well, how did you enjoy the whole experience of being a writer and the editing process? Not so much the editing process where Haley was sticking out her tongue at you, but the actually pulling it together and taking this idea and turning it into a published book.
It was amazing. I still have little Post-it notes, or, I would sometimes be at gymnastics with Haley, and I have another daughter, Ellie, who's also short. She's 3 years old, and I'd be watching them in gymnastics, yet I would think of something and I would write it on my arm, or I would write on a Post-it, and I would have this draft email composed to me, and it wouldn't make sense to anybody, but it was a bunch of rhyming words. So I also spoke in rhyme for a very long time when I was writing the book. come together was just amazing. And, I asked a couple of, friends and family, can you read this? Can you tell me what your thoughts are? And I was really fortunate to have such a supportive network of people, who were very honest with me and, might say, I really like this, but this doesn't make any sense. And, things that I was really attached to in the book, I ended up taking out because they made sense in my head, but they didn't necessarily make sense to anybody else.
Boy, I have that problem with a lot of things in life. There's a lot that makes sense in my head that no one else can understand at all.
And I was really fortunate to be, working with Mascot Books. They have been such a great partner to me, and with them I found this amazing illustrator who lives in Brazil. Her name is Vanessa Alexandri, and she just captured every detail. And I even sent her a picture of Haley, and the character in the book looks so much like Haley. It's amazing. And I just, it's like she was in my head.
What was that like for Haley to, know that the story was about her, but then to see this character on the page that looks so much like her?
She thinks she's famous. So, so hopefully we didn't give her too much of a complex, but she is obsessed with it. She has the book displaying on her dresser. It's in her school library, and so she always reads it during reading time. And she wants to be an author. She is constantly, stapling construction paper and coloring things. And, not only was this such a positive experience in helping change her perspective of herself, but I think she saw me, work at something and, do it relentlessly and not give up. And I think it gave her that drive that she one day will maybe write a book. And, she saw a strong mom, and I want her to be a strong child.
Absolutely. And we talk so much here in the show about how important it is for parents to read, not only with their kids, but let their kids see them reading to model that behavior. And you did the same with your daughter. There was this issue, and you wanted to solve it, and you worked really hard at it, and then you turned what was a negative experience into something really positive that's helping lots of people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I, especially wanted to do this book in rhyming. As a child, I always loved, reading Dr. Seuss books with my dad. Always thought rhyming was such a clever way to captivate a young child and to foster their love for reading. It's great for early readers. It also kind of teaches them about repetition and sounds. And so that's exactly also why my book is done in rhyme.
Yeah. I imagine you must have gotten some strange looks, walking around the streets of Chicago, going into different stores and ordering things and maybe just slipping into rhyme while you're ordering a coffee at a coffee shop or something like that?
Oh my gosh, yes. And my husband was also sick of it. Everything I said, we would rhyme, and it was embarrassing. But, you fall into that mode, and until you're done with the book, you keep rhyming and rhyming. I sometimes do it now.
Well, you can either say it in rhyme or say it without rhyme. But tell us where folks can connect with you and learn more about the books on the net.
Absolutely. I have a Facebook page. It's facebook.com/beingsmall. I'm also on Instagram. My handle is @beingsmallbook. My book is available on Amazon.com. Again, it's Being Small Isn't So Bad After All. And it's also available locally in Chicago at Barnes & Noble and Barbara's bookstores. And if you're not local, you can order that on those websites.
That is awesome. We've been talking today about a little book that's making a big impact on the world. Being Small Isn't So Bad After All. We've been talking to the author, Lori Orlinsky. Lori, thanks so much for being part of the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And I really, I truly hope this book makes a difference in other kids' lives just the way it's touched my own daughter.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Sean Peterson. He will be here to tell us all about his great middle grade fantasy novel, Stella and the Timekeepers. We are really honored that we have a chance to give authors like Lori Orlinsky and Sean Peterson a voice, a chance to tell the world about their fantastic children's books. If you are the author of a great children's book, we would love to give you that same opportunity. Being a guest on the show, it's fun, it's easy, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands and thousands of people about your great children's book. All you need to do is you go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on the contact button, let my producer Fatima know all about your great book. We will let you know the next easy steps. The next easy step for me is to say thank you. Want to say thank you to Lori Orlinsky. Be sure to check out her book, Being Small Isn't So Bad After All. I also want to thank our sponsors, Alice and Paul Clackowitz. Be sure to check out her amazing book, Mommy's Big Red Monster Truck. And we also want to thank Linda Phelps and her book, The Adventures of Johnny's Pocket Band, Battle of the Bands. I also want to thank my amazing producer, Fatima Khan, for doing everything she does to help make the show a success. I also want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support that she gives me. I want to thank my amazing niece, Jimena, for all the joy that she brings into my life. And, of course, we want to thank you. Thank you so much for bringing joy into your children's lives. Thank you so much for bringing joy to my life by listening to the show. And thank you so much for making the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.